Greetings. It's Thursday, May the 30th, 2024, and this is the Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins of the Denison Forum, narrating today's article written by Dr. Jim Denison. While we wait for a verdict in Donald Trump's hush money trial in Manhattan, another courthouse story has been making headlines. Charges against world number one golfer Scottie Scheffler were dropped yesterday in Louisville. The prosecutor stated, Mr. Scheffler's characterization that this was a big misunderstanding is corroborated by the evidence. I don't know anyone who was hoping Mr. Scheffler would be convicted. His character as a devout Christian is exemplary and one key to his popularity. By contrast, 56% of Americans believe Mr. Trump is guilty of a crime in the New York City case. However, I wonder how many on either side formed their opinion based on the available data. Have you read in detail the facts surrounding Mr. Trump's case? Or do you assume that anything you read would be tainted by the political beliefs and agendas of those who wrote it? Even after a verdict in Mr. Trump's case is announced, partisan divisions will persist. 93% of Democrats believe he's guilty, while 78% of Republicans believe he's not. In yesterday's daily article, we discussed the growing belief that America was founded as a colonizing oppressor for the purpose of advancing the founders' personal and financial interests. In his latest New York Times column titled, How We've Lost Our Moorings as a Society, Thomas Friedman writes, many universities today seem to be in the grip of a progressive ideological framework that divides the world into hierarchies of colonizers and the colonized, oppressed and the oppressors, racists and anti-racists, and now pro-Zionists and anti-Zionists. As a result, those who fall on the wrong side of those binaries feel the need to stay silent or risk being ostracized. The first impulse in too many cases these days is to seek cancellation, not conversation. End quote. Friedman cites a recent survey of college students in which 59% said they hesitate to speak up about controversial subjects such as sexual orientation and gender, religion, politics, or race for fear of negative backlash from their classmates. He then points to an often overlooked cause of our moral chaos, the decline of local newspapers. Friedman reports that such a platform is, quote, less likely to go too far to one extreme or another because its owners and editors live in the community and they know that for their local ecosystem to thrive, they need to preserve and nurture healthy interdependencies to keep the schools decent, the streets clean, and to sustain local businesses and job creators, end quote. However, with the advance of social media and national digital news platforms, more than half of all U.S. counties now have limited access to reliable local news and information. Friedman notes that national, often highly partisan influencers go straight from their national studios direct to small-town America, unbuffered by a local paper's or radio station's impulse to maintain a community where people feel some degree of connection and mutual respect. End quote. Let's respond by highlighting two urgent opportunities. 1. Speak the truth in love with courage. A young missionary couple doing humanitarian work in Haiti was recently murdered there by gangs. Davy and Natalie Lloyd joined the 5,000 Christians a year, more than 13 a day, who are killed for their faith. Each year, nearly 300,000 believers are forced from their homes. More than 42,000 are physically or mentally abused. The darker the room, the more necessary the light. Evangelical Christians are more likely to be canceled than ever before in American history, which means our message is more needed than ever before in American history. Jesus warned in John 3, verse 19, people love the darkness rather than the light because their works were evil. As a result, we should expect to face opposition from the very people we seek to serve with biblical truth and morality. In 1 Corinthians 16, verse 9, Paul said regarding his ministry in Ephesus, a wide door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many adversaries. When we face similar opposition, we must, as noted later in verse 13, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, But remember from verse 14, let all that you do be done in love. So first, speak the truth in love with courage. 2, serve as a missionary where you live as you are. Local newspapers are vital to the flourishing of local communities. So are local Christians. You know your neighborhood better than I could. You understand the culture of your community better than anyone living outside of it. Accordingly, as taught in Ephesians 4, verse 15, speaking the truth in love begins where you live. We read in Luke 5, verses 27 through 32, that Jesus used Levi to reach the tax collectors of Capernaum, where Levi lived. From Mark 5, verse 19, we read that he sent the Gadarene demoniac back to Gadara, saying, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. As we can see from verse 20, the Gadarene then became the first Christian missionary. He went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. When the Holy Spirit filled the first Christians in Acts 2, they began declaring the mighty works of God in the languages of the people gathered with them in Jerusalem. From then to today, speaking in the cultural language of those who need biblical truth is vital to their eternal flourishing. The good news is that the Spirit will use anyone who will be used. As Henry Nouwen noted, without the Spirit of Jesus, we can do nothing. But in and through His Spirit, we can live free, joyful, and courageous lives. Nouwen explained, we cannot create peace and joy, but the Spirit of Christ can fill us with a peace and joy that is not of this world. We cannot break through the many barriers that divide races, sexes, and nations, but the Spirit of Christ unites all people in the all-embracing love of God. The Spirit of Christ burns away our many fears and anxieties and sets us free to move wherever we are sent. That is the great liberation of Pentecost. End quote. Whom will you share this great liberation today? Listeners like you support Denison Forum's mission to deliver news discerned differently. As a ministry nonprofit, we are fully donor supported. To partner with us, please donate today using the donate link in our show notes.